your online has to be even more enticing and more connecting in order for people to want to actually watch you online.
Here's those thirds that we were talking about, right? We've divided the screen. We've got thirds going this direction.
If I have to find your eyes every single time you change the camera shot, that's a problem.
Right.
Because that's fatiguing, it's confusing. It disconnects me too. Be creative. Have fun. Because that's what this shot is. It looks kind of cool. In today's episode of Enhance Don't Distract, Sean and I break down a bunch of camera shots, angles, how to get emotion, all of the things that you ask why people do what they do when we're talking about broadcast video. Chad Vegas touched a bit on this in our interview with him, so make sure you go check that out as well. Me and Sean really break this down and have a good time while we're doing it, breaking down thirds and all the different rules of video. It's a little bit longer, but you're going to want to watch through the whole thing. Lots of great information, things that you probably don't think about most of the time. So make sure you check it out and don't forget to hit subscribe. Without more information, let's just go and get it. Cassie's in it too. Welcome to the new year. It's 2025. We're 10 years past when Marty McFly came to the future.
Goodness.
We're literally living in the future.
Every second we're further into it.
Oh no, I'm getting older. Oh no, I'm older now. Oh no.
I'm even older. Oh shoot. I better stop this aging thing.
I don't think that's possible. We're all dying. It's just a matter of how long it takes each one of us.
My goodness, are we starting this new year off that morbid? What in the world?
Well, when you're getting older, you know.
Welcome to the new year, Justin. You're closer to death.
It's technically,
it's
technically true.
It is true, but do we need to talk about it?
No, we don't need to talk about it. What we do need to talk about is today's topic.
Okay.
So I had this idea a while ago. I threw it out to you. You thought it was a great idea.
I caught it.
You caught it. You didn't throw it back.
I didn't.
You held on to it.
This wasn't no flea flicker.
And then then you threw it back to me. So it was more like a hook and ladder.
Yeah, it was.
So
that's true.
I love the football reference this week.
I know.
So I feel like with everyone live streaming all these camera shots, there's just so many people that don't understand like the rules. What kind of shots do you need to create certain emotions and all that kind of stuff? Like all of that, like what are we doing with camera shots rather than just capturing? We just talked with Chad Vegas a little bit on the last interview. If you haven't seen that, go watch that video. That interview was great. But I kind of wanted to dive in a little bit more and I wanted to review some camera shots. So I used elevation because I feel like they're kind of like what everyone looks to for that kind of stuff.
Because they're elevated.
Because they're elevated above, you know, most people.
on the visual scheme of things. Well, I think one thing too, before maybe we jump into this is, even when you kind of posed it to me, the question or the idea of going through and talking about this stuff was a lot of people, you know, they're doing these live streams.
You never bring your microphone close enough to your face.
I know. Or I put it right here.
Yeah, last time.
Hey, everybody. Remember me from the last time I was on? Do I sound more familiar now? Oh, goodness. You're right. I'm terrible about it. And you know, the funny thing is, being, you know, all the years of audio engineer, and
weren't you on radio for a little while too?
I was in radio, touring musician. Like I should know where the microphone's supposed to go. But for some reason we get on here and I'm just like, hey.
I'm going to talk way over here. And then I'm going to be out of camera shot. And
today's topic is. And brought to you by the color blue. Or by, Enhance AVL Orange. Anyways, you had mentioned how people have their live streams like, oh, we're live streaming, why it just doesn't look that good, or man, you know, we need more cameras, we need more money to make this look more better.
Yeah.
You know, more money.
Yeah, more money, more better.
Yep, that's right. And we're kind of talking about, you know, that's not necessarily it. Check some of these out. It's like, it's just maybe not the best use, or it's an education thing, right? Right. You don't know what you don't know. And so let's just talk about placement.
Well, yeah, and some people are like, why are we not growing? You know, why are more people not wanting to watch our stuff? That kind of stuff. And it's like, sometimes it is the content, right? Mm-hmm. There is always that. But sometimes it's like, well, your cameras just look bad.
Yeah.
Like,
everything looks grody.
It's like fatiguing. There's no emotion, you know, driven. Mm-hmm. Like there's no connection, right? Yeah. And, you know, what me and Jordan talked about, you know, in another episode was, you know, most people want to be in person anyways. So it's like your online has to be even more enticing and more connecting in order for people to want to actually watch you online. So it's kind of like that double like whammy of like, you want people in person, but we're streaming for a reason too.
Well, and things have changed, to think that it was going to stay the same, I guess would have been foolish, but that happens a lot of times, right? You hear famous last words, well, we've never done it that way, or I've never seen it, whatever.
Right.
Well, maybe you should, or
right. Just because you haven't done it that way doesn't mean you shouldn't be doing it that way.
Right. So, one of the things that it started off with, whether it was, churches that were trying to do TV ministry that didn't have something, like TV ministry, but they were like jumping on maybe local TV network kind of stuff, or early on in the streaming thing. It was always kind of a window on what's happening in this service.
Right, a window into the building.
Into the building. And that worked, for the time being. Early on, right? Sometimes that was just a static shot in the back, pretty wide. Maybe you even saw some of the congregation, sometimes a little bit tighter. Maybe you just saw the platform. Didn't move.
Yeah.
And, the pastor, either, or priest or whoever was speaking was just in one spot, or maybe they moved around a little bit. Camera didn't follow. They just walked back and forth and on the shot. And it's like, that's it. That's all you had. And that worked. But with all of everything out there that's on YouTube and the movies and the more media savvy people have become, and understanding how, everybody has a mobile theater in their hands, right? You can see, you can consume all of this stuff, but it's really kind of changed
in the same device
and create it, all in one piece. But it's really changed the standard that people are hoping things will reach when they're consuming media.
Yeah.
And at one point too, it used to be said, and it still gets said sometimes, but I'd like to challenge it. Maybe this is a hot take.
Cass, can you make some intro music for us?
Anyways, so is that the point used to be people will suffer bad video over bad audio. Like the audio needs to be good no matter what. Your video can be a little crummy. And there's truth in the fact that there's auditory fatigue. Your body gets tired quick from having to try and decipher what is going on with what you're hearing.
Right.
And pull things out. The scripture I always use, again, I say unto you, unless the trumpet sounds a clear sound, who then will get ready for battle? Like that to me was always my battle cry, if you will, for the sound and light team kind of stuff. It's like, hey, we got to make sure this is clear. That's the whole point. It's the reason we're here.
Right.
We got to do that.
Yeah, I talk to clients like that all the time. They're like trying to decide whether they do the PA first or the video first. And it's like, well, like, what's the purpose of everything we're doing here?
Right. It's the spoken word.
The spoken word and the worship leader, right? So it's like those two things are very audible driven things.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. And what's cool is in bringing video alongside of it, especially if it's good quality video, you're now helping a whole nother section of people be able to hear better, because now we're seeing the mouth, as long as the sync is correct.
Yep.
We're seeing the mouth movement and hearing it, and it helps me to hear you better and more clearly understand what's happening. Well, you could get away with that static shot, and you could get away with even static in your shot as long as your audio was okay.
Right.
But people were more likely to turn the channel or change the video, continue scrolling on past you if the audio was bad.
Yeah.
Now they're hand in hand.
Yeah, as I say.
That gap is closed. And now they're like, there are so many options out there.
There might be a slight gap still, but like it's a lot
It's
smaller.
not what it was, right? Yeah, it used to be big. Now people are so used to things looking a certain way.
Yeah.
They've all consumed enough movies, enough YouTubers out there that have better looking video than your church does, and all they're doing is using their iPhone, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that there's caveats to that. Like there's caveats to everything, right? I think that like Gary Vee will say that it doesn't really matter, right? Content's content. If it's worth listening to, people will listen to it. And I think that that's true to a point, right? But when we're talking about long form, like I'm not going to sit there and watch and listen to a Gary Vee podcast for an hour and a half that looks and sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just not going to. When I see like a 30 or a 60-second short that maybe the audio is not great, the video is not great, but like what he's talking about, right? Because he's like at a conference and someone just comes up to him and says, "Hey Gary, I gotta ask you a question."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Shoot, bro." right? Like I'm willing to listen to that because like 60 seconds isn't going to be fatiguing for me. But like when I'm sitting there talking about like a 30 or 45-minute sermon, oh yeah, like that gap has significantly closed,
significantly shrunk. And I think, and you said it again, fatiguing. That's the thing. Good content is good content. Only goes so far because here's what happens. Okay, you say a lot of stuff. You're saying some really good things, and we're talking to everybody out there, right?
Talking to you.
Here's looking at you, kid. Is that content could be really good. It could be great stuff. Like everybody should hear what you're saying.
Right.
But the staying power of it, the shareability of it, the person's ability to recall everything that happens shrinks significantly when the audio is so bad. Right. Because your brain's processing power is not, it's all in decode mode. Yeah. Decode. What trying to hear through the noise, hear through the static, hear through all that kind of stuff, and possibly see through it or whatever. And so you're trying to like push away everything else. And so instead of storing
it's your CPU, right? When you're putting plugins on audio and you add a plugin, you use more CPU. You add another plugin and another plugin and another plugin, or you use a really labor-intensive plugin, right? When you're running like an Isotopes like repair, plugin, that takes a lot more CPU than adding, a plugin that gives you cool reverb.
Yeah. Same thing with video, noise reduction. Right?
Oh yeah.
Now, if you're doing professional video and all that kind of stuff, doing storytelling pieces and everything, you're going to use noise reduction on everything, even if you feel like you don't need it, even if you're adding grain again on the back end.
Yeah.
But getting rid of that noise up front is one of the more CPU or GPU, depending on how your setup is, but it's intense to pull the noise away so that it's a clearer image.
It's intense.
It's intense.
Or it's in a building.
It's in several tens. It could be in buildings as well. Could be. But that all to say that you might have good content, and that's true, and people are going to want to listen to it and try to get through it. That's the thing. It's like, oh yeah, because I've had stuff like that shared to me before. Hey, you really got to listen. The audio, it's not that great. Or usually when people are handing it to me, because I work primarily in film now, they're like, don't be too judgy on the look and the camera angles and the, whatever. Yeah. But the message is really good. It's like, oh man, should have prefaced it that way. Of course, I'm going to notice those things, but like now I'm really,
now I'm going to be paying attention for it. Yeah. All right, let's dive into some of these shots, and I guess walk us through like what the shot is, what it's supposed to be conveying, and maybe what it's called, maybe some of the rules to kind of stick in. So, again, we're going through Elevation with Pastor Steven, just because they're kind of the top of the bar for most people, and most people have heard of them. So, all right, let's start off with this one. What would you call this shot, and what is it kind of doing?
Yeah, sure. So this one, obviously, there's a lower third coming up here. We've got the scripture graphic, and lower third, we're just talking about how, so if you take your screen, you divide it into thirds in the horizontal and in the vertical to kind of get equal sections there. We'll probably bring up rule of thirds or thirds, bottom third, left third, top left third, whatever. Quick. We'll say that quite a bit throughout the thing here. So that lower third is just existing in that lowest third that's happening here, that's giving us our scripture and everything. So we're going to try to pretend that's not there, but we're talking about a shot right now that's in action, right? He's coming down, he's reading from the word or from, well, it's hard to tell in this still what he's reading from. He's reading something there.
I mean, I know that he's reading
off
from
of the podium. Yeah, he's reading from an iPad. You're right. Yeah. But say that's your pastor and he's reading from paper notes or the Bible, whatever. He's reading something from the lectern. You can, if this was not here, you would see probably just below his chest.
Yeah.
And obviously we're seeing his head, and we got a little bit of space up here. And this to me, like in film, when I'm doing like, the narrative driven kind of stuff and everything, would still be a medium. You'd probably call this in a church world, probably an extreme close up.
Yeah, this is a tight shot.
This is a very tight shot.
Yeah.
I mean, I would never call this an ECU, maybe a close up depending on what it is that you're filming. But so to me, this is kind of medium, but it it's fairly close. But if we, is this one of the ones where we did we do an overlay on this one?
I don't know. Click on the next one.
Hey, oh, look at that. There's the thirds. Sorry if that was really loud. I just got excited. So here's those thirds that we were talking about, right? We've divided the screen. We've got thirds going this direction. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 across here. And these are pretty helpful for when you're setting up camera shots. Now, in this one, we kind of talked about this when we were picking the shot too. We're like, it's kind of funny because we have the lower third here, so we got to compensate for that, the actual lower third graphic, I should say, within the lower third section.
Which it literally takes up the entire lower third.
It really does take up the entire lower third right here.
It's a super fat lower third.
And now, the general rule for thirds is you're keeping kind of the eye line area near this line of the third. But this is an action shot. Something's happening here. The camera's following with him as he's coming down
I was
and standing up
sure
and then
he's
doing all this kind of stuff. So, so that kind of changes things up a little bit. But he, at any moment, could look straight up while he's making his point, and his eyes would land right where that is. So I think it's kind of fun that we picked one where it's not perfect, but you can see where everything kind of falls into the rules here.
He was in this message. He was like kind of like doing this like weird like lean on the podium, like every time he walked up to it. So I'm sure that there was a camera guy back there going,
I don't know where to go with this.
What's he doing?
That's funny. And you can see he's in the center third. He's the prominent area that the focus is coming in right there. He's delivering scripture, and that's where we're pulling focus from. And this is a simple enough shot to get with most cameras. Depending on how your sanctuary is set up and where your cameras are placed. This might be the most important, maybe a little more loose, maybe what we call like the belt buckle shot or something, like a true medium, the Texas, and that's essentially like right from the belt buckle to just above the head, getting the eyes kind of on that top third there.
And why do you want to have because old school broadcast was like, a mile of headspace. Like you don't want that now, but like, no. Why do you want some headspace?
And that never really should have been a thing. That was the difference between cinema and then broadcast. Yeah. And it was always uncomfortable. Your main focus is always falling out of the bottom of the screen. It doesn't look right. And so there is an entire psychology behind, like there's color science and psychology of color. So talking about the colors that you're using, in your set and in your scene.
Orange and teals.
The T&O thing you hear about, giving good color separation so you don't get eye fatigue, just like you can get auditory fatigue. All kinds of things that we could jump into with maybe other episodes. And the same thing is with eye flow. Yeah. Your eye has a natural flow to go top left, bottom right. Like that's just what it wants to do.
The way we read.
It's well, yeah, and that's the thing though too, right? People are like, well, what about in countries where they read the opposite?
Yeah.
Right. The natural eye flow though, if you look at the art and everything, still follows the other direction. Yeah, right. So funny. It's just how we scan things. It's how the majority of people scan rooms. There's certainly people that will do the opposite, but the majority of humanity, their eyes take in information and your brain through your eyes.
Yeah.
Take it in a very specific way. So there's a very important reason for why we frame up shots the way we frame up shots. One thing that's kind of important, especially people that are really into storytelling, and you're talking about, especially with the good news or a good story, the good character, something of that nature. We'll talk as well about your journey into something that is good or somebody that is speaking something positive to you. You are generally viewing them going from left to right.
Yeah. So we talked about this, and so I think this is a perfect time to bring this up. So like this is called the rule of thirds.
Yes.
We kind of landed on the plane of like we don't really like calling it a rule of thirds.
It's the suggestion of thirds.
It's a strict guideline of thirds.
Yes.
It's like this is the proper way to do it, but like you can't always get in that. And so like there's a shot that we'll talk about later that like that kind of falls in that, right? It's like
it doesn't follow the thirds, but it works.
Right. And I think that's my big thing for a lot of clients is like there's so many things in the tech industry that people are like, nope, this is what it's supposed to be. And it's like, well, there's a difference between wrong and incorrect, right? And incorrect means that it's not the way that it should be done, but it works. Wrong is like, this doesn't work. It's not supposed to be done this way. It's going to fall apart.
Yep.
Right. And I think that there's like some of these things, and this shot that we'll talk about in a little bit here is classic for that. But so, yeah, I just wanted to bring that up now. So, because we're talking about it. So,
well, you talked about the headroom real quick. One of the things that we could hit on is that. So in art and photography, painting, fine art, graphics, whatever,
right.
and shot composition, mise en scène, or your how things are placed within the picture. Each third represents a different level of importance, if you will, and emotional something. And so when we talked about older broadcasts, and there was always all this headroom, and the person's head is falling further down, maybe right into the middle third, and sometimes borderlining, chopping the chin off, going to that last third.
Yeah.
The further you push your subject down, and then especially if then they are down and off to one side, the less importance they have, or the more you are saying with that piece that they are not in a place of authority. They don't actually have the knowledge to speak on what they're speaking. There's all these different things that play into it.
I mean, I bring up Mr. Robot again.
Yeah.
Because in Mr. Robot, he will sit in this bottom corner facing this corner.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what are you trying to convey here? He thinks that he's no one.
Yep.
He thinks, it's depression. It's like, it's all that. And like, it definitely conveys.
And then you add
that.
the right color scheme that they did.
Oh,
you're just like, you get it.
Very washed out, and then you add in the mopey, anxious music too on top of that. And it's like, yeah, it's like everything is just like, they did it perfectly.
Yep. Everything works together for telling that story.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's one of the things too that people finally started picking up on in the broadcast area is like, hey, we're putting, whether usually a news anchor, whoever, it's just any broadcast period, right?
I think the first time I really noticed that they caught on, because it was something that I always asked, I'm like, man, like, why is there so much headroom?
Yeah.
Like, you could literally like raise,
you could literally
raise your entire arm and like,
and still be in,
right? And I'm like, man, that doesn't make any sense. And I think it was like the Academy Awards or something. I don't know. It was probably 7-8 years ago. I think Chris Rock was like hosting it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm like, there's like that much space above his head now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that looks really nice.
Hey, somebody from the cinema world came in here and said something,
But like, if you go to my camera shot real quick, I've always said this headroom is like, I'm kind of slouched over a little bit because I'm just naturally doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, if I go like this, like I'm still technically in frame.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, if I just adjust or I get excited for a second, right? Like I'm still all in frame when I do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where I've always settled my volunteers when they're like, why is that? Well, it's like, there's like some framing stuff, but like, we want to have a little bit of headroom because like, what happens if the passenger like steps forward for half a second, right? You don't want to see this, right?
Yeah.
So it's like that also helps prevent some of that kind of stuff from happening.
Areas where this kind of thing's changing, you're picking up dance or, like live stage stuff, there would be like, okay, with your, we don't cut off
right
the spotlight here. We need at least to here,
right?
At minimum. But in reality, it's like, we're on stage and we're doing theater and everything's big and wide and expressive because it's happening to a live audience and it's got to be larger than life than like it does in film or something that's being captured up close where it becomes much more micro.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, in those areas, you will still see things framed up a little bit looser. In fact, there's a lot of modern cinema that really needs to reverse the thought process on that. They actually get too close. And so you don't get to take it in the way you do and say like a Singing in the Rain or something like that, where the camera's backed up enough that you really understand the full piece of choreography and you get to see the hard work that went into everybody's timing and their lines and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Because they're too close.
I think about like the oneer in Jaws, like the way that that's framed is like, it's framed in a way that like you're paying attention to the people talking, right? You know what I'm talking about when they get on the ferry?
Yeah.
Right. But there's enough framing that you can see what's going on around them at the same time. But like, it's not so much that I'm not distracted, but it's like, I feel like I'm on that ferry with them. The way that, Spielberg had that frame.
I was gonna say, Spielberg is notorious for just being really good at that.
Especially
like, I'm not getting too tight. I'm not using super shallow depth of field. A lot of wider angles and, things like that. And of course, oneers, but yeah. I'm going to let you discover where in the frame I think something's going to happen over there. Yep.
Yeah.
Anyways.
All right, cool. Let's move on to the next shot here. So we've got this shot here. This is obviously like a head to toe. It's framed a little weird.
It is.
I feel like I chalk this up to probably a volunteer on this camera. My guess. I don't know. You walk us through, like, where should this be framed? What is it trying to do here? And what do you think?
So we'll talk about the good. There's a great, separation and color separation. Granted, this is a grab, so there's not as much contrast and things like that as there would be if you were watching this type of thing. But we're not mixing, like on the floor here. We kind of see like it starts to look like a skin tone again, but up here the contrast is good between lighter, darker, lighter in the face. Anyways, good contrast of color there. He's popping off. I'm not losing him in the background.
What I really appreciate is that I have such a hard time using black backdrops when someone's wearing all black, because he's black hair, black beard, black hoodie, black pants, black shoes, black podium, but he doesn't look like he's falling into a pit of black.
Right.
That's I think what like stands out to me the most about this.
Yeah, for sure. And some of that is because they're constantly running the haze.
Yeah.
And so these beams that are coming out of like the spots and washes that are behind him are catching that haze and helping to give some separation. So that's a really good use of atmosphere. You'll see that in film all the time too. And we're always pumping atmosphere into a space to get some of these kinds of things happening. It just adds more interest to the shot. But yeah, and just, he's, the lighting's good. Lighting is a whole other thing. We could talk about that in a whole other episode.
There's a lot that can be dissected about this kind of stuff.
So this one, as a head to toe, he doesn't have enough headroom here in this particular one, right? This is where, if we're going to talk about just the rule of thirds. So I think, here it is. Now, if they were to frame this up so this really fell on his toes, you could get into an acceptable range. It would bring this line closer to where this seam is, and it would give him a comfortable amount of headroom here. The problem with not enough headroom it's like when you get really close, and you see this in movies all the time, you can chop the top just to try to keep the eyes here. The rule is chop the top, that's okay. Never chop the chin. Like you want to see the mouth moving. Now, we'll see some movies, right, where they frame on just the lips as they're moving and talking about something. But you actually create an unease in people who are watching if you were to keep a shot like this for too long.
And they're on the shot for quite a while.
Yeah. And I would never stay on a shot like this for more than 7 seconds, noticing that, okay, all right, well, I got to at least keep it for 7 because otherwise it's too short. We're going to, be jostling people's brains around, throwing cuts in too quick, and it's not music, it's speaking. And so
there's certain children's shows that like we refuse to let our kids watch.
Dude, boom,
bad for them.
So bad. So, I'd let it run its course, go to another shot that's framed up better and say, hey, I need you to...
Hey, camera two.
Yeah, I need you to bring that up a little bit to give them a little more headspace because you're actually... In some people, you'll be creating, if you stay on that too long, like an anxiety kind of almost feeling in people. And so, but he's in center, because he's stopped here to say something.
Convey a point.
Yep. But yeah, that one, it's really close to being in an acceptable range, but this is one of the few. And again, remember, everything's happening live. We're working with volunteers, and we're showing you shots from a church who's kind of at the pinnacle or, at the apex really of the television production as far as like the look and everything that they have going on. And you can still see some shots still don't get framed up perfectly.
Yeah.
So it's okay.
I was actually going to bring that up in one of our other podcasts, is that like I was watching Elevation one Sunday morning and like the lyrics weren't on the screen. Like they weren't on the live feed. You could see them on the projectors, like the LED wall.
Yeah.
But like they weren't on there, and then all of a sudden like they blinked, and then they blinked again, and then they weren't there, and then they were there for the rest of the service. So it was like clearly something had failed.
Something was going down,
and someone was like, hurry, fix it.
Yeah.
So they are not immune to technical issues.
Yep, definitely not.
So
definitely not. It happens to the smallest and largest. And if you're a church that is doing live streaming or you're thinking about live streaming or anything like that, just know it is going to happen. There will be technical issues, no matter the size or, even, I mean, you can spend millions of dollars on your production equipment at some point, something, and it may just be a cable got unplugged.
Yeah.
That's why it's very important to understand signal flow and know what's running to what. And that could be a whole other video.
Yeah. You good with this?
Map your system. Yeah. Yeah,
we
can move on.
All right. So now I feel like we're getting into some more like flavor shots.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe we should cover real quick, right before we jump into these flavor ones. What we've looked at are your basic shots.
Primaries.
Yeah. So if you've only got one camera.
Yep. Which one are we doing?
Let's go back to that first shot. Right there. Yeah. Now this might be a little bit tighter. If you've only got one camera and it's kind of midway, right? Then you could probably get this kind of shot with any kind of zoom in. I mean, your iPhone could get this if it's midway up the flow. Definitely have it on sticks though. Don't have somebody holding it the whole time and just, Facebook living from their phone.
I'm sorry, I'm just imagining
put it on
a church live stream. Someone like holding it.
My arms are getting tired. Hey Benjamin, can you take this?
Wait, why did it turn vertical for a second?
Yeah, all of a sudden flip. The auto flip's going on. But between these two,
yeah,
but with better head space, going on here. This is probably what you're going to end up with, and that you can zoom in and out of.
Yeah.
But we're talking about most places you've got a camera in the back of the sanctuary.
Right.
A camera, maybe two. And if you've only got two, then set yourself up to be able to get this or wider. We'll look at some that are a little bit wider.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one to just kind of be on this, especially if you don't have any volunteers.
Yeah.
And if you've got something like the ATEM Mini, or Mini Pro ISO, whatever that is. Okay, because they don't do the regular minis anymore, right?
No,
it's just Pros and Pro ISO.
Yeah.
So you got yourself an ATEM Mini Pro or Pro ISO, and you've got the two to switch through.
Yeah.
My wide and my medium.
Yep.
And that's what you got, and they're next to each other, but they've got their different focal lengths all established, and you can just go between the two. That's a good starter.
Yeah.
That's a really good starter. And
Yeah.
if you've got a third, you can start adding in some of these flavor shots.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about, if you've only got three, this would be the wrong side to go to. But Elevation has more than three.
Just a few.
And here's what, and we talked about this a second ago, right?
Yep.
He is now facing from right to left. And in general storytelling and in pictorial storytelling, that means now he's either the bad guy or things are going badly. Now, if he's making a point in the sermon right now,
right,
that is like, and you're just down and you're depressed, he's going through, through something like that.
Yeah.
That could be the time, if you have enough cameras, to cut to this side and we're showing the downward struggle.
Yeah.
Now we can't just flip over to the other side. We're breaking the 180 rule. We'll get into that later. That happens in churches all the time, constantly breaking the 180 rule.
Yeah.
And not for a reversal, which we could also talk about. But in here, we'll see it throughout these shots. We're constantly flipping which side of him we're on.
Yeah. I feel like this is
but the composition is great.
Yeah, it's praned up really well. Like he lands pretty closely directly on that third. His chin is on that third.
Yep.
Like it is framed really well.
Yep. And the leading of the frame. So notice you were talking about he's kind of here, right? It looks like he just started to bend slightly past that part. He's pointing in this direction. The leading edge of the frame is over here. Right? Yeah. This is the frame lead. So like if we were following him, we would keep that distance in front of him.
Yeah. That's good. We got this guy here.
Yep.
So their sanctuary is a little wide. So they get these really kind of, in my opinion, these cool shots that are kind of like, they're not behind him because he walks so much. Like I think this shot is technically off to the side. Like it's a direct side shot of him. So like when he turns to come to the other side of the sanctuary, he then like is essentially facing the camera again, which is kind of cool because then you get the crowd in the background. Like you see all this crowd.
Hey, he's not alone in this building.
Yeah.
I'm not alone in watching with this. I'm watching with other people. I'm a part of this congregation.
Yeah. And
you can also see, so we know it's lower.
Yeah.
And because if it was on eye level with him and directly behind him, we'd be looking at the tech booth right now.
Yeah. Which we do see that in another shot. And this is the shots that I like, these flavor ones, especially for when you're viewing online. Because what I'm seeing right now here is I'm seeing people's heads. I feel like I'm standing in the sanctuary with all those people.
Yep.
Right? So it's like, hey, there's a bunch of people in the sanctuary. Oh, hey, look, I'm standing in the sanctuary with those people. Like, I love that. This is the one that we want to talk about with the thirds.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
All right, so break this down.
Yeah, so if this wasn't a shot that had any audience within it, right, then his head would be just a little bit high for this third. We would have given him, we would, bring the shot down just a little, or up, if you will, the camera up a little bit, to get at least his chin or something of his head right on top of this third.
Yeah.
Right? Or if we're going to cut it with another shot that's a close-up and his eyes need to match up, that's kind of one of the reasons for this thing, right? If you're always keeping the eyes just above this third line so you can see them, it's kind of difficult if you make it cut through the third, especially if you have that grid on there. Yeah. And so that when you cut to that next shot, nobody's eyes are flying from one side of the screen trying to find the speaker's eyes, because it's very important. We're seeing the eyes and, of course, the mouth, right, matching with the audio.
If I have to find your eyes every single time you change the camera shot, that's a problem.
Right.
Because that's fatiguing, it's confusing. It disconnects me, too.
Yeah, absolutely. But in this case, what they've done with it is kind of clever, because like if you're sitting in the audience, you're only going to see what you can see, right? If we were to change this shot too much to try to maybe get him down to the third, then this head's going to take up too much, and this is going to look like his head is just floating on top of this guy's head. Yeah. And so we're having to sort of break away from that guideline of the thirds. But you see the people are all still fairly close, minus this guy's, his lid here is just above that third. But it's kind of about the level you'd be if you were down there in the congregation with these people. There's people in front of us. There's probably people behind us.
Right.
But this is a really great shot for creating that immersive experience, right? Exactly. You're sort of enveloped within the audience. So here's one where if they would have lined his eyes up with it would have just been awkward.
Yeah, his head would have been floating above that other guy's head.
Yeah. So this was a really great example of break the rule.
Right. Right. And that's what it's like. It's a guideline, right? Because like we break that guideline, that rule, right? To make this shot work and work well. Because this is a cool shot. Like I love the way that this looks. Like this is one of the things, like whenever anyone's like, well, we don't know what we want it to look like. I'm like, well, if you're going to do something like this, because like we're doing video for people watching at home, online later down the road, whatever. And it's like, make them feel like they're part of what you're doing. Yeah. Right? And don't just make them look like, like I'm just
it's
watching a TV show.
It's not the wide window anymore. It's now you're in it. You're a part of it.
I've been brought in. Yep. Yeah. I'm part of the family.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And that's all on the camera and production crew, right? Like, gone are the days of broadcast length stuff.
Right.
Right. That's gone. You even see it with some programs now. Well, this one has more commercials or less commercials because they made the TV thing to such a length or to whatever, and we've got to fit everything else around that. And so with all the streaming services and everything, you might know maybe your favorite show that you're binge watching on some streaming service right now, one episode's 40 minutes long. The next one's 58 minutes long. Yeah. Because who cares? It's just whatever it took to tell the story.
Right.
Well, now with all of these streaming services and a lot of people and churches and everything coming away from paying for putting their stuff into broadcast television, all of those are off. No longer does the service have to cater to the platform.
Right.
Now the platform gets to cater to the service or whoever's in charge of, like Cassie, who nobody can see right now because we don't have a camera on her. Back here, she's in charge of a lot of volunteers doing this kind of stuff, right? I mean, well,
we have like 32 volunteers, I think.
32 volunteers.
That's insane.
That's a handful.
That's
like a few handfuls.
That's the size of our church.
Yeah, and so you guys are, I imagine, as you're switching through volunteers, everybody kind of has a different forte, like maybe like what even camera operators and stuff, right?
Yep.
You don't just let anyone on camera one.
Yeah. No. We have one guy right now who is like, I want to be on camera one. I'm like, you can't master camera 3. So until you can follow my direction, you're going to stay on camera 3.
Yeah.
And he just goes off and like does these random weird pans on a wide shot. I mean,
it reminds me of that event we did.
Awful.
It's awful.
Do you remember that event we did in Allegan last year?
Oh yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
all right, camera 2. I'm like, I want you to do this. And he's like, all right, cool. He like zooms in, frames it up exactly how. I'm like, cool, stay there until I tell you to move. And then I go, all right, camera 3. And then all of a sudden I'm like, camera 2, what are you doing? I'm like, stay there.
Why are you off in the weeds?
Why are you moving?
Yeah,
He's like, well, I just got bored. I don't care.
Right? That's your camera shot. That's
what you need to be doing right now.
Do you feel like from week to week as the volunteers switch over, I know there's all kinds of training and things like that, but like when they switch over, do you notice a difference? Because you're in your position, you're kind of at the bird's eye. You can see everybody's cameras. You get to see all that kind of stuff. So
yes. So like my camera 2 people, they are pretty much about the same, right? I have them doing the same type of shots every week, and they're really good at it, right? But then you get a new camera 2 person on there, and you're like, no, I need you to like put their eyes here, and I need you to put them in that rule of thirds.
Yeah.
And so they get it eventually. It's normally a second service. We'll take the second service for TV today because first service is a learning experience.
Yeah.
But
and I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Like, especially when you're working with volunteers.
Exactly.
Oh, nice.
Right?
Getting a nice shot. Yeah.
But then we have like your camera 1 people or your camera 4 people, like Doug, who we know here. He likes to get a particular shot and he will stay there until you take that shot. Where I have a lot of other camera people who will go, okay, if she's not taking my shot, then I'm going to move on and get something that she wants.
Yeah.
Where he will literally stay there until I say, no thanks, camera 4, or no thanks, camera 1, you know.
Yeah.
And then move on.
Yeah.
Or I'll go, okay, I'm going to come to you, but I need a different, right now I need the drums and you're not on it. So can you do the drums and then I'll come back to this shot? Yeah.
Here's the drum solo, guys. And when I said drum solo, I mean, that's your cue. The one that's supposed to be on the drums.
Exactly.
You go to the drums as drum solo. And I know, so I volunteered one time, I don't remember if it was camera 1 or camera 2. And because we're like, hey, we don't have anybody on that. Hey, can you jump on that? Okay, yeah, cool. But we were still beholden to, at that time, a lot of the broadcast stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so we needed more space, whatever was going on to hit some of those things. And I think it was you who came in like, Ed would like to not see the nose hairs because I'm framing everything up like cinema. Like I'm flipping the back focus. Like, I mean, like all that kind of stuff. And it's like, that looks nice. But this does not work for TV right now.
We gotta pull this out,
And I know, some things have changed and you can do more of that now and it's more acceptable. But yep, I remember I was like, oh yeah, I don't come from that world.
Yeah.
And they've merged so much over the years. And I know, like you mentioned, Doug is a volunteer and he works in both worlds, right? So, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think it's just fun to get a person who's constantly, behind it looking, Cassie sees every version of these shots every week.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them, yeah.
The good and the bad and the ugly. And the really good.
I see them all.
Yeah.
See them all.
So this is another really cool crowd shot that I really like from the crowd. Again, it's like, these are where this makes it start to feel more cinematic than it does broadcast, right? Because it's like, again, like I feel like I'm in the crowd. He's a lot smaller here. We're seeing the LED screen behind him. That's like their iMac for in the room.
Yep.
Right. Again, it just makes me feel like I'm there.
Yep.
Right. It's inclusive.
So this shot is embedded in reality. We saw that a lot with the other one might have been zoomed in just a little bit. But here, everything feels natural. The size of this head, the size of him from it. If I were on like a long telephoto lens that was really, really compressed, but whatever, for lack of better terminology, really compressing that depth of field type of thing, then he's going to feel too large behind this head that's too small. We're going to have that strange kind of like camera trickery, like we're shooting, The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings or something like that. But yeah, like you said, it immerses you in the reality and in that space, in that time with what's happening there. And they've got kinds of, other kinds of cool things going on that help to like frame things. Like, so you see, I keep forgetting I can do this, right? Like this looked like light with gobo breakup kind of thing going on here. Yep. You've got the,
so that it
the
doesn't
leading
just drop
line.
off into the abyss.
Right. You've got the leading line here that brings you down to right where he's standing. And this shot, it looks like there's movement happening. So maybe it's just about to kind of look over because you see a little bit of.
I think this is a mobile camera. I think it's on someone's shoulder. Would be my guess because it does.
That's why it's at the right height for.
it's not smooth like it's on a track or anything like that, or on like a jib. So I think that this is like someone's holding the camera itself.
The thing that bothers me about this is that their IMAG is not on a straight shot of him. That their IMAG is now showing what you're looking at. So I'm looking at what I'm seeing, and then I'm seeing it again, and that makes me feel uncomfortable.
And that is actually a good point to bring up. Your IMAG should really only ever be your head to toe or your Texas or your something of that when you're not in worship. And there's a reason for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Because now you've gotten rid of what IMAG is all about, which is really helping everybody connect with the speaker and hear the words more clearly.
IMAG, if he's the same size in person as he is on IMAG, you shouldn't be doing
your IMAG is pointless. It's no longer IMAG. It's just
Yeah.
And I wrote a job on the eye screen there today.
We can also talk about placement of the IMAG screens.
Yes.
If we would like. I think that's another topic for another day.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, he's about to hit this third here. So he's about to walk out of something that would be considered acceptable, right? Because he's facing this direction. He's walking that. You're about to create some tension with hitting this. And you'll see that in a lot of modern films, right? Now the frame is here, but there's like tension. We're talking about something, and,
And he's kind of got that posture, right? He's pointing. He's got his arm crossed over. So like again, like we're not obviously watching the video. We're just grabbing screenshots. Right. Honestly, I haven't listened to the sermon, so I don't really know. And this camera's moving, so it's like there's a lot, stacked up against.
But if in this situation, the camera person was like, well, I need to have him on this third, and I've got, I got to get maybe just his chin, just above here. Well, then we would have to have dropped the camera tilt, which would bring the head up further, probably cause this to disappear. And if I were to move the camera in this direction to see him more, I probably completely occluded him with the back of this person's head.
Yeah.
And as cool as their hair looks, that's not the, it's not what we're looking for. We're looking for here. So this is another one of those things where it's like the shot works, even though it technically isn't working with the rules.
Right.
Now, him moving a little bit further over and then bringing this head up would actually create a really nice natural frame for bringing us to this. But just like you said, Cassie, but get that off of the iMac because that's not what needs to be there right now.
Is it?
Yeah, it's the exact same shot. So look, there's the back
totally,
of the head.
totally is.
Back of it.
Yeah, no, that's good. All right, let's move on. All right, so then we got this shot. This is kind of the same shot we had earlier.
Yeah, this is it's very similar. I don't remember if we did. Oh, we didn't do grid on this one, but he is still a little high in this shot.
Yeah.
Okay, but he is right at the sort of back edge or front edge of that far third.
Mm-hmm.
But again, he's facing this direction. I don't know why that side gets favored, a lot in this, and I don't know what he's talking about. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. But
that's the side the jib is on.
Just like
ours,
the side the jib is on. Yeah. That's the kind of the fun thing, is like when you've got locked off cameras, those are your cameras that are on your tripods, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got up to maybe three of them. You've either got the one in the back or you've got the two in the back, but at different focal lengths, and maybe you've got a third. If you've got a third camera, you have to decide where your 180 line is.
Yeah.
If you were to take, pretend this is like a stage scenario here, and this is the audience, and this is the speaker, or vice versa, you're going to draw a line directly down the center, all the way across your, from the stage, altar, congregation, whatever's all the way through. Okay. You got a line there, and then, or you can see in this diagram, they've got a line here or a line there. Whatever it is, you've got 180. If this is your line, this one here, you've got 180 degrees in this direction. Say this is your line that you're choosing, then you've got 180 degrees here, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a half a circle. Now, the general rule for this kind of stuff, you don't break the 180 because you start to play with people's brains, just like we talked about with that rule of thirds, and not trying to find their eyes every time that we move into something. We wouldn't go from like this shot of him to this side of him. Now I've jumped across that 180 line, and now he's facing left to right, whereas before he was right to left.
So their 180 line is the front of their stage, right?
It's really hard to tell with these guys because they're constantly
flipping
around it. I would say that it is, but they also make a lot of use of reversals, and that's where we're seeing kind of over his shoulder, and you're seeing, the congregation.
Yeah, so that 180 line could technically change. You just don't want to go from camera to camera that is changing it.
Right. You don't want to do that, and you want to be. It helps to be conscious of what's being talked about in that moment, and that's something that's really hard to constantly keep. And if you've got notes, that helps. Yeah. Or just be like, hey, here we're talking about, or just stick to it. Just say, hey, look, this is our 180 line here. We don't break it unless we're going to a specialty shot. Right. So maybe.
And again, it's something like Cassie was saying, there's someone in a control room that sees all of the cameras at the exact same time with a headset saying, do this. Yeah. Right. Or, stay right there. Because I do really like that.
Yep. That
changes things.
It does change things. And sometimes too, though, it's so if you can be a story conscious producer or, on the line, wherever you're at, in the things, say, depending on how your church is set up, you might be the director and you're making those calls, or you're cutting, you're making those calls. You might be the one person doing everything. Who knows? But if you're a very story conscious type of person, and that's visual storytelling as well, then you might pick up on those things and say, hey, we're going to stay away from this side because this is where we're going with what we're talking about right now. But some of them, it's just like, wow, this composition is beautiful. Let's go to that shot. It looks good.
Yeah.
But it actually doesn't flow.
Right.
And you see that happen a lot.
I've done that.
It even happens in movies. It's not that it never happens. And you always hope there's a purpose for it.
Yeah.
And yes, I do read into things further maybe than some people do. I know my wife told me at one point, she's like, you kind of ruined movies for me, because now I'm like, that's really bad compositing. That was terrible green screen. Why is this done? I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Too. I was like, the continuity of things drives me crazy. Oh, look, that glass is half full. Oh, it's full. Oh, it's empty. Oh, it's full. They clearly shot this at three different times.
3 different times. Where's the person that's just doing the continuity checking? We were watching something just the other day, and it was, she's like, why is this scene green screen? And I was like, I don't know, babe. They're driving in a convertible with the top down. You hear them clear as day, no road noise, no.
It's like a TV show.
No ambience. Yeah, it's a TV show for which all of the special effects have been horrible. I don't know who the team is behind it. I love the lead actor in it and everything.
It's actually Andrew Kramer.
And it's just...
They're just using Element 3D.
They're just, they haven't gone through the tutorial. They're just dropping in all of the...
Oh, yeah, they bought the software. They didn't watch anything.
They didn't watch any of the videos. It's bad. So, yeah, like I said, they're in a convertible, flying down backcountry roads. There's no movement to the vehicle. There's no movement in their hair at all. The one brother's got even longer hair and no movement. No, nothing. And then they do one of the worst things where they over blur the background.
Oh, that's not real bokeh.
Not real bokeh at all, And it's just a Gaussian blur, and the characters are just pristine up front, and everything else is just like, just like mush.
One of my favorite things about certain TV shows or movies is when characters spend a lot of time in the car, and there's characters in the back seat all the time, and the headrests for the front seats are gone, so that you can see clearly through. And it's like, hey, you clearly wouldn't be driving around like that.
Jan and I were just watching a show that takes place mostly in Ireland, and she's like, "Hey, there's just no need for headrests in Ireland? Is this something they take out of the cars or whatever?" But she's noted, but it was very obvious. It's like, no, somebody missed the cue to put them back in for this next shot. Because you need to have it out for, okay, I'm going to shoot this direction. I'm going to get this conversation, this piece of the conversation. And somebody's supposed to come and put them back in before you go to the shots. Where I was like, no, if you crash in Ireland, your head's still going to be, nothing's different about us Irish.
They're just a lot shorter.
Right.
So they don't need the headrest.
Stop making fun of me.
That's sorry. Us Scots are a little bit taller.
Just a wee bit. Anyways, I just rabbit trailed like.
All right, let's go back here. So this shot here, this is another one of those like fun shots that I don't think most people will ever use. But what I do appreciate about this shot is it's two things, right? We said it earlier. It again makes me go, oh, there's a ton of people in this room. He's not by himself, just talking to a bunch of cameras.
Right.
Second thing is I love that they're not afraid to show the tech. Right.
Yep.
You can literally see his confidence monitor. You can see like the back of this piano here. Right. You can start to see some of the tech people,
some of the
engineers. You know, this is the shoulder of a band member, most likely. I like this. It's fun. I don't feel like I see this shot from them very often, but like it's just kind of cool, right? It's like a fun, like wider shot. I don't know. It's just fun. That's what I just like.
It is fun.
Eye candy.
Most places that have this, you usually only see it maybe during worship or something like that. You know, if there are band members or something like that going on up there. You certainly don't see it a whole lot in places where there's nobody in the congregation. Nobody has congregated. We're not flipping to this shot in that kind of instance, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, this is definitely one of those kind of fun shots.
This is
99.9% of churches aren't going to be able to, nor do they need to pull this type of thing off.
And I brought this shot in specifically because I wanted to say, be creative, have fun. Because that's what this shot is. And it looks kind of cool. Like, this is, I wouldn't want to watch a whole sermon like this. I probably don't want to see this shot, honestly, very often.
Well, then, in film, this would just be the gratuitous butt shot the entire time. There's the backside of Stephen Furtick. Yep, that's still his backside.
This is why I will never understand Church in the Round. Just saying.
Church in the Round, yeah. Because somebody's always behind you.
Someone's always seen my rear end.
My rear. I don't even have one.
Neither do I.
Yeah. So.
Those Celtic people. And I think a lot of these are just kind of more shots. Like, I really love, I brought this shot in just because it's kind of the same shot we've been talking about. But, like, the crowd is lit up enough that we can see them. It kind of falls off. You've got all these gobos kind of in the background. Like, there's not a shot that they do where it feels like he just falls into an abyss somewhere. Yeah. And that's super important. And I know that that's really hard for a lot of churches to do. And they literally just, let's just throw some gobos in here. Let's just throw a light over here. Well, right. And we saw that back here as well, right? So we
probably should point out, by the way, these clips are coming from different sources, which is why the coloring looks so different. But when you're watching a sermon, it's consistent.
Yeah.
So that's another beautiful thing. From camera to camera, it's consistent.
Yeah. But like you can see here, right? They have this light that's literally just lighting up this wall. So that when they come to the shot, which they do quite often, he again doesn't fall into this black abyss. Yeah. Right.
It's that accent lighting. I mean, here you could.
They do it here too.
Yep.
On the other side of the wall.
You're just giving some. So you hear like your basic 3-point lighting, right? But there's beyond 3-point lighting, and we're seeing a lot of that kind of stuff come, especially when you're talking about stage for TV, live stage for TV. You fall into this strange. Oh boy, maybe that's for a whole other topic. But I'll just like brush on it here real quick. But when you're lighting for that type of thing and you've got a moving person, but you're not using follow spots and you're talking about washes and zoning and all of those types of things to make sure that everything looks decent from every angle that you're going to have. And there's homework and stuff that goes into that too. Okay, we've got these 3 cameras and this one's limited from here to here. And so that part has to look good. This one has overlap with that camera from here to here. Plus then this is the extension of it. And so, let's make sure it looks good here, kind of thing. But the other thing that I think that's happening in these shots is in the shading and grading, right, of the cameras. And so when you're shading it, that's just kind of like getting it to normal, all right, whatever. Like we're okay,
I think they're very cam, so they're probably rec 20.
Our medium gray is pointing, 18% gray is falling at the right point on our charts, and our exposures are all good, and our white balance is correct for the look that we're going for, warmer, cooler, neutral, whatever. Yeah. And we're doing that sort of thing. And we're not doing in any of these what would be called crushing the blacks. I would say the black levels on this are probably closer to like maybe the 20. Line, with a little sorry, I just going to start throwing technical stuff on there. But so
Are you like a colorist?
If we were really, what do you know? I mean, if we were really to crush this, we wouldn't be able to distinguish the difference between this man's, dome cap here and his lid, his beanie, and
dome cap,
and his hoodie.
Yeah,
this would just be gone if we were really to crush this. And so we're not crushing it. We're not pulling it into that super like over contrasted type of thing to create what seems or like it would be more cinematic.
I mean, to be honest with you, their coloring kind of reminds me a little bit of like the old Instagram look.
Yeah, there is
like better, like done better.
Yeah, and that's what you call like your milky or hazy shadows, right? Things of that nature. But it does allow for, I mean, could you send this into pure black? Sure. Is there a need to? No, because like we talked about, there's haze in this room, and so there is going to be a murkiness about this.
And it also feels, I'm sure that there's a level of like, if you ever go watch this online consistently and then decide to go there in person, there's a level of the experience you get in that room is going to feel and look similar because of that.
Yep.
And he lands on the third.
Hey, he lands on the third. What are you talking? Yeah.
All right, so these are the wide shots. Let's talk about these.
Yeah.
So they use a handful of these. This is the shot that they usually use so for those of you that don't watch Elevation, they do worship, and then Pastor Stephen usually will walk up while the worship band's still kind of there playing, and then he'll talk a little bit, and then there'll be like a transition. This is the transition where like he's going from like the worship band is still technically on the stage here, kind of, doodling behind him, noodling, not doodling.
Noodling and doodling. Somebody's drawing and someone's strumming. I don't know. Hey, Noodle and Doodle, that was a PBS show I helped out on one time.
Yeah. I think that this is just like during worship, they tend to stay really tight on almost every shot that they do. Not everyone, but a majority of them. I think this is kind of like all right, let's pull back a little bit. Let's like give some separation. There's a break in what's happening here. That's the way that I feel. Tell me if I'm wrong and tell me what you're thinking that they're kind of doing with this.
Yeah, it's good to give somebody that visual break. It's just like with colors, right? What's the point in changing some of the colors and things like that with lights? You got to break it up visually, or you get that fatigue. We talked about auditory fatigue. There's visual fatigue, things that will tire your brain out. And sometimes it's kind of like if you're driving at night, there's a lot of forward concentration. And if you just simply remember to check your mirrors, that will help break things up for your brain a little bit and kind of reset you in the space that you're in.
Yeah, driver's training, always thought to
check them. It's good for more than just knowing what's around you. Even if you know there's no other cars, move your eyes around those, and it's good for your brain in another way.
Tunnel vision.
Yeah, you don't get that tunnel vision. Helps to reset. Same kind of thing that happens. Like, so we've just come out of worship, everything's tight, and there's a lot more angle changes.
Yeah,
and camera changes, switch it a lot faster, and things like that. And to pull it back and to give you, it's the smelling of coffee between the smelling of different candles and soaps, right? And we're resetting the senses really quick. We're giving your brain a little bit of a break.
When they used to give you that little cracker.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Pepsi Challenge. Comment down below if you remember the Pepsi
Challenge. We're old.
Sweet. So this is the jib that other shot came from. So they bounce between that tighter shot and this shot. So this is during, I think this is still at the very beginning of the service. Yeah, because the worship band's still up there. You can see the camera. Look at that lens.
That's a really long lens.
So I think this is kind of creating the same kind of thought process. This is an even further away, like wide shot. All of these are moving, by the way. None of these are stagnant, there. I like these shots as cutaways for smaller camera systems where they don't have 17 cameras like Elevation does. I used to do like one like in the ground floor, like I'd put one up on the mezzanine that showed the crowd and everything, because it was like I had a main camera and then I had that, So it's like if pastor ever like got out of my shot, like I couldn't follow him fast enough, that was my safety shot.
That's your safety shot.
Boom. Like anywhere he's on the stage, he's going to be in the camera.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, and look, there's a crowd. Right. Type thing. And then we started adding more cameras in that room, obviously, and we were able to kind of do that a little bit more. But again, that's kind of what I did there. And it also kind of just shows like the scope of like what's actually happening in this room.
Yeah.
But like Cassie said, look, iMac, it's got the big,
it just has the same
shot.
thing on there. That's the opposite of what iMac's for.
But if you're using this as a transition like that, if you go back one, you have this is like they're welcoming each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, hey, everybody give everybody a high five, say hello. It's a transition shot. So you are out wider so that when your lights change, your people have time to iris, and there's a reason that this will still be on your screen. So like we do that all the time. Camera one is my transition shot. So I'm going from video announcements into a camera one shot that will take me into the stage so that then my lights and everything can come up and it's okay. Nice. Even though that's on the screen, but I would think that next shot is probably not a transition shot, and I would probably be putting up your speaker on your iMac at that point. But.
Yeah, no, I agree.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, I don't think that this shot here specifically, I don't think this is a transition. I think this is just like I'm just showing the scope of the building.
That's a good call on that other one, though. I think that's exactly what's happening. You see everybody kind of turning towards each other and doing things, and there's no need for iMac at that point. And like you said, coming out of, because that's true in churches that have the capabilities to change up their lighting scenario and everything. Yeah, your camera settings have got to change.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
you got to switch profile, or you got to,
Yeah, you can kind of tell like the house lights are a lot brighter in this shot than they were in the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
In the other ones, you definitely saw more like theatrical lighting, like lighting the crowd so that they're not in like a dark room.
Yeah.
But this is definitely like, we're moving into like you can actually see the house lights on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
And then not on there. Or much more dim.
So man, I think that's great. I think that there's a lot of information to digest there. And like you said, there's so much about this world that we could, go even deeper in if we wanted to.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's really good.
I think if anything, like, and coming away from it is like, it's not necessarily that you have bad equipment.
Yeah.
Always look at what the full capabilities of it are. Maybe it's just not being used to the best of its ability. But then look at the shot composition. Look at that rule of thirds. And there's all kinds of things that you could look up. And I mean, really, it could be a whole different video on why you put things in different parts of the screen to convey what feeling for what part of the message, for different things like that. Like there's a whole... When I say there's a whole science behind it, science is the study of, right? So we're studying something, and and it's not a hard and fast rule. Not even science is. Like, it's funny, but science says, well, science is still just an evolving thing. It's not. But what the studies are showing us is this is how our brains as humans react to imagery in this sense, and in this motion, and in this position, and with these colors, and with, there's something to all of it, and. So it's worth studying. It's something to look into. And if you really want to take the production of your church's live stream or television ministry or whatever to the next level, it's definitely something to dive into. But if you do have a lighting director, or you even have lighting or something of that nature, that's something where, the people working with the cameras and the people working with the lights and everything, they all have to come together. Mm-hmm. And talk about, here is the voice or the look,
right?
That we're going to have for this, so everything has a congruent look. And then just knowing, hey, you can do it with one camera. Yes, go ahead, go with this shot. And you can certainly do it with two cameras, and you can do it with three. And maybe that's something we can make available for people too. Some diagrams of like, hey, you know what, this is a good setup for if you've got one. This is two. This is three. Wow, 4. Okay. Now you start to get into
camera affordability is becoming greater, so it's like you're able to.
What did we just see? The Blackmagic Pocket 4Ks just went down.
Yeah, they just went down from $1,300 to $1,000.
Yeah,
$300 down.
Yeah,
like that's insane. So yeah, I think that as that happens, we're going to see churches, a lot of smaller churches, have more than like the traditional one or two, and it's like. I think that once you get to 3, and beyond, it's like there's a lot of just like, what do you want it to look like?
Yeah.
Like, have fun.
Yeah, you can do some fun stuff with it, and I think that's something where I don't know that you're going to plug yourself, but Enhance AVL is a really good company to talk to if you need some consultation on. Yeah.
Huh?
I got mine on too, but I have one of the ones where it's on the back, so that might get weird. Hey, everybody, check it out.
Like when you came dancing in my office.
Yeah,
Yesterday.
hey, look what I got on. Anyhow, the point is, for the consultation too, you can always reach out. People can get a hold of you at enhanceavl.com, right?
Yep, book a consultation there, or email me at justin@enhanceavl.com.
Yeah, and you can talk about this kind of stuff in further detail. If you feel like you're at the end of what you can do with what you have, there may be a little more that you can get out of it, but you may actually be at the end. We're not saying that everybody can pull, this elevation look off with their Sony Handycams from the 90s or something of that nature. But there's definitely always something that can be done. And there's still a lot of churches out there that everything's in 1080. They don't even do anything in the 4K, realm, and things are upres, and that stuff looks pretty good.
I mean,
that's where the lighting and lensing comes into.
Facebook is still 720 streaming. You can upload 1080p, but YouTube just started allowing everyone to stream in 4K, which is cool. So it's like we're in a transition period, I think, of online stuff where it's like 1080p has been kind of like, that was always the argument, right? Like why do you need 4K cameras? Because for a long time they were significantly more expensive than 1080p.
Yes.
And now that's not quite the same. Like, the studio camera that we're on right now, that's 4K or 1080p, whichever we want it to be. And, it's still $1,300, right?
Yeah.
Same thing as the pocket camera, 4K. So
you can also spend $60,000.
Yeah.
I wouldn't suggest, there's no need to. There's absolutely no need to in this day and age to spend that amount of money on a camera, but whatever.
Yeah, it is what it is. So, yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you smash the subscribe button. Comment down below. What cameras are you using? Was this helpful? Was this not helpful? Other questions? Maybe we do another follow-up to this if there's more questions that we missed.
So much to talk about.
There's so much to talk about in camera world, video world, lighting world, audio world.
Yeah, all of it.
Yeah. So especially when it comes to video specifically.
And they're all connected. Isn't that crazy? Oh my goodness.
Can't have one without the other most of the time.
That's right.
So,
hey, we got these really nice cameras. We don't have any lights, so we can't see anything, but we got these really nice cameras.
Nice.
Yeah, sweet.
See you guys later.
Is that it for us? All right.
Bye.
Peace.